NBA playoffs are here, off and running. Yes, indeed. Live picks and roll coming your way right here, right now. 2 games to recap from last night, 2 games to look forward to tonight. Plus, we have the do or die elimination games coming our way later this week. We do have NBA playoff series to discuss. Are the Rockets an upset potential as far as going up against the Warriors in that first round? Lakers, everybody's starting to pencil them in as Western Conference Finals. We got a lot to get into. NBA playoffs, as I said, are here. Sean Barnard, how we doing today, sir?
We did. We made it past the 82-game grind of the regular season. That the live action is here. As an unwise country singer once said, "Get me to God's country," and boy, we made it.
Get me to God's country. Yeah, we're here. All right. I do want to say that, and I meant to chop that up from the show that you did with Sam. Really? We're going to put the NBA playoffs over March Madness? Really? Is that where we're at? Is that a consistent is that a thumbs up on your end too?
I won't ride with Sam on that take. I won't lie. To me, March Madness is the greatest sporting event
Yeah.
that exists. The
It's one and
madness,
done.
all the action that happens. Yeah, you can't beat it there. But with that being said, I am a hoops purist here. I do love the NBA playoffs, and I am hyped up. I think it's going to be a very good one. So excited to see all the action get underway.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I just when I caught that, I was like, oh man, I wrote that down. I meant to snip that up.
I
We'll have
didn't
to
want
get
to
that
push
up.
back on him at the time, but yeah, I do agree with you. I cannot put the NBA playoffs over March Madness with all respect.
A great show, nonetheless, and it can be found at foxphlgambler.com. We'll roll it out there again tonight, so make sure you're streaming or keeping it locked here to the Gambler a little bit later. All right, let's dive into what took place last night, and I guess we should start with the second game of the evening. It was the better of the two to a point, but the Golden State Warriors held it down and advance and move on, and now they get the Houston Rockets. Play in Jimmy went off last night. First time in NBA history, albeit it hasn't been all that long that they've been doing the play-in games. But two teammates scored 35 points each, and the Golden State Warriors roll on. Not too much of a question mark. I don't think anybody was really thinking that Golden State was going to lose that game, but they didn't cover the number, which is important to most here. So that is something that we need to focus on. But as far as Golden State, and now taking a look at what the potential that they have, we all knew. It's funny, man, those numbers with Jimmy Butler in the mix since he's joined the Golden State Warriors, Sean, it's been a huge difference to say the least. I even undersold this, compared to what we're getting right now. Before the trade, they were 17th since their third best record, 17th in record, third best record since the trade. Defensive rating, they were the 10th best at the time of the trade. They're now the best defensive rating team now. Turnovers forced, tied for 15th before Jimmy. Best record right now, or best rating now. Points off a turnover, tied for 13th. Best at this point in time. Free throws attempted, 27th before Jimmy. Third at this point in time. Sean Barnard, Jimmy Butler.
Yep.
Really?
He's still that guy, Sean Brayson. Change location, change situation. He is still Jimmy Butler. And that was really my biggest takeaway of last night is right at the start of that game. It was clear this was Jimmy Butler's moment to an extent. And by the way, I don't think it's a non-story, this hand injury that Steph Curry is kind of battling here. It's been the case for really the entirety of the season, several months at this point, but it's gotten worse over these past couple weeks. Thought it was really notable. I mean, the Houston Rockets matchup, which we're going to get into, as that will be the playoff performance. Curry was limited to 3 points and was the most aggravated by that hand that I've seen really all season by it. That is a concern of mine. And he didn't particularly pop to me last night, even though he still did get the numbers. He's still Steph Curry. There's no way around it. But when you have an injury to your shooting hand, regardless of how good of a shooter you are, that's going to be bothersome there. And I thought that Jimmy Butler did set the tone for this team. The Warriors went 23-7 with Butler in the regular season with him in the lineup. They got a chance, man. And when you look at the pathway, I don't want to completely rule out the Rockets. I do feel like the conversation has shifted to a little bit disrespectful to Houston. I still think the Warriors win the series, and I think that should be the case here. But it's going to be a battle, man. It's going to be a war. The Rockets have athletes. They have defenders. They have perimeter guys that are going to throw at this Warriors team. But when you look at the pathway beyond this, the Warriors win this game, We have a matchup, potentially Lakers-Warriors, which is going to be absolutely electric. The NBA has to be thrilled. And by the way, a quick hat tip to the NBA for the way things went down at the tail end of the regular season. With all these games happening, we go to overtime with the Clippers and Warriors between these two teams, with this having pure playoff seedings on the line. One of these teams, and the Warriors were the loser of that matchup, had to scrap their way out of the play-in tournament last night, while the Clippers sat at home and prepared for their 7-game series with the Denver Nuggets there. So I did love how that worked out. But yes, I am giving this Warriors team a puncher's chance in this playoffs.
All right. Well, the big thing that I would say is they split the season series 2-2, excuse me. And of course, it's like a whole different season when you added Jimmy into the mix. And it's not, it doesn't shock me that they're able to do what as far as these stats I threw out there to you, the ratings, the rankings, all that. It doesn't shock me because Jimmy he's one of those guys. Like I'm watching last night and we know what he's capable of. But it's hard to define, but it's like Kawhi. Like when Kawhi has the ball, man, and he gets that shot off, it just feels like it's going in. Jimmy had it last night, and you had that feeling as well. Now, is Jimmy on the same level as a healthy Kawhi? I think he's up there, but Kawhi's got rings.
Yeah.
Kawhi's got rings, and it won't shock me if the Clippers, if he can remain healthy, make a little bit of a run here in the West. But Jimmy is one of those top-tier guys, and of course, when you team him up with Steph Curry, it just makes all the sense in the world. I guess my big pushback to the Warriors conversation would be, who else do they have? Because, yeah, you got Curry and Jimmy for 78 last night. That's all well and good. Can you count on that in a 7-game series against the Lakers or against if they do beat the Rockets or if they make it further than that? Like, I know this is a good team and they've shown us since the trade, but that was one of the things that hit me watching that game last night. It's like if Jimmy or Steph don't have it going, I think they're in trouble.
I mean, for starters, I kind of think we can count on that I think Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry are some of the best playoff performers that we've seen in NBA history as far as guys rising to the moment with that. The thing about the addition for Butler, to me, it's less about like Jimmy specifically, and granted, he's great and can flip the switch in playoff mode, unlike very few players there, but it's just made this Warriors team all settle into their roles in a little bit more proper way. When you looked at the first half of the season, it felt like everyone was playing out their box a little bit. That Steph Curry had too much on his shoulders. Draymond Green asked to do stuff offensively that he just shouldn't be asked to do. Brandon Podziemski there, a guy that like is a fine player, but not a co-star to Steph Curry by any means. And by the way, don't want to undersell the second consecutive Jonathan Kuminga did not play coach's decision by Steve Kerr there. That's a huge storyline, especially going into the offseason, which he's going to be a free agent there. I believe a restricted free agent. I like Kuminga. I don't think he's a perfect fit for this Warriors team. I don't like at all the handling and management of him throughout this. And I do think Jimmy's directly related to this, as he's basically like a much better version stylistically of Kuminga there. But when looking at this Warriors team directly here, it does start and end with Steph Curry. He's still got it. He's still capable of being the best player on a championship team. Jimmy Butler is capable of being that co-star. And while he does not have the ring on his finger, we've seen him rise in the moments when it matters. Draymond Green sets the tone. It's going to be a battle. The pathway is not easy. The West is going to be an absolute like blood fight in this playoffs here. So I'm not saying the Warriors are set up for great success here, but I do give them a puncher's chance. And I do think Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler are still capable of being those guys.
And the Warriors and Rockets, the winner of that will face the Lakers and T-Wolves winner.
Yep.
Yeah. I know we all have the Lakers beating the Timberwolves. Is that how you see it?
It is another series that I do want to be clear, like isn't going to be a walk in the park here. That I do think the Timberwolves have played better during the second half of the season. You will get at least one game where Anthony Edwards looks like the best player on the floor and wins you a game where he goes off for 45, 50 points, whatever the case may be. I think defensively, like I'm going to continue to pound the table for, I think teams with Rudy Gobert on them have a limited ceiling from a playoff perspective there. I don't love the way the Timberwolves have leaned more into this sort of like trade Karl-Anthony Towns, double down on the defensive approach. And again, while Rudy Gobert is incredibly elite at the things he's good at, he's so limited in what those things are. And I do think that's going to be something that JJ Redick is going to have circled on his scouting report and be prepared to make this guy guard in space because he's incapable of doing it. And we've seen this throughout the entirety of his career. So I think this Timberwolves team has more flaws. It'll be interesting to see how Julius Randle is managed. He's played much better during the second half of the season, and this guy who's better than he sometimes get talks about. But the bottom line is, it's LeBron James, it's Luka Doncic, man. I don't see the Lakers losing this series, and I do think they end up finding a way to win four out of the 7 relatively easily.
And right now on DraftKings Sportsbook, you can get that series price, Lakers minus 195, T-Wolves plus 160. Yeah, you know that the betting public's going to be all over the Lakers.
I honestly would have guessed that number would have been higher.
Really?
Yeah, when looking at these, I would expect the Lakers at least in the minus 200s there. So I don't hate that value.
Interesting. All right. Anything else from the Warriors game last night specifically? And I guess maybe we could talk a little bit about Memphis, where they're at, because their season isn't over yet, but the next potential matchup could be whatever. And is there anything for you? Did they show you fight last night? Did they come back out strong in the third quarter? They opened up playing really well, and then all of a sudden the Warriors went on like a 25-8 run, whatever it was, and then your boys started snoozing. But I kind of figured how that game was going to play out. Although I will say, in true NBA fashion, the fact that the Warriors did not cover the number is just perfect. Anyways, anything else from that game for you last night?
Yeah, Ja Morant banged up a little bit. He rolled his ankle down the stretch there. I didn't understand like what the mindset was from Memphis or Ja specifically. He didn't go to the locker room. He kind of walked over to like a corner of the court, sort of in that tunnel area, and was at the end of the bench, but he wasn't in the game. So I didn't really get what was going on here. He did eventually return, and I thought Ja played pretty well overall. He looked fine when he got back on the floor to me, but I think that's a little bit of a storyline to note from Memphis's perspective. And I do want to bring up once again, Jonathan Kuminga not playing is a big deal from a Warriors perspective, and there will be like some fallout from this as this guy heads into postseason. When the Warriors are playing guys like Quentin Post and G Santos, and Jonathan Kuminga can't get on there for a minute of action, I do think that is pretty telling for how the coach looks at him. So that obviously that'll be bookend for once the playoffs are over. But there's going to be some pretty significant fallout. By the way, Kuminga tied in with some pretty powerful agents, so there will be some stories coming with that.
Bane went for 30 last night. Ja went for 22. He had it going in that first half. He was, looking like old school, Ja Morant before all the nonsense that has taken on his life came about. Although I will tell you, I am a fan of the grenade celebration. I just you got to give it up. You have to give it up. It's a good. They didn't. First of all, they never told him he couldn't do it. Number two, like the ear thrown in. Yeah, it's great. It's great. It's a great celebration.
Yeah, I sent a text in a group chat with you and Sam Ostry last night. I was disappointed we did not see his weapon of choice as they kind of went down pretty quickly in that game. And it's tough to do those celebrations when you're fighting from behind there. One more point I did want to note here. Zach Edey had become one of the more controversial players, I would say, coming out of the draft and really all season. A guy who's not Rudy Gobert, but I think fits the category of incredibly elite at the things that he does, but limited in the things that he can do here. I was fascinated with the way the Warriors attacked him last night. Traditionally, when you get a guy who can't guard in space, like a big man like that, the plan of action is create space on the floor and let a guy take him one-on-one. So you would kind of set screens, try and get Zach Edey on Steph Curry and go at him there. That is not what the Warriors did last night. They basically utilized him as knowing this guy cannot step on the perimeter and create screens off ball to generate open three-point looks. So knowing that Edey would not face or go all the way out to the three-point line there, they set these off-ball screens on the guy that he was guarding to generate three-point looks for them. That was pretty interesting to me. I had not really seen a coach like attack him in that particular direction. So little hat tip to Steve Kerr, and obviously was effective for the Warriors there. Very curious. I don't think it's coincidental that Edey's minutes have grown since the coaching change there. I'm curious if that is handled the same way as they continue on and have a take on the winner of this Kings and Mavericks series.
66 games played for Zach Edey in his rookie season, finished averaging 9.2 points per game. Of course, the big man, we know what he's all about, pulling down those boards, rebounds, and it looks like he averaged 8.3 rebounds per game.
Like 20 minutes, too.
Okay. Last night, Zach Edey did go for, I just had it up, I apologize. Zach Edey's numbers last night, 14 points and 17 rebounds. So not a bad day.
Minutes.
33 minutes. Yeah, he was getting a lot of PT. Look, I'm not going to make him out to be something he's not, but I think he could be a little bit better than my expectation, a little bit more consistent and not being shoved around left and right, even though what you just pointed out. And again, it's his rookie season. So I do think that he could turn out to be a pretty good pick at the end of
Yeah.
the day for the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah, no arguments there. I don't think last night was the matchup for him for a lot of what I just went into here. I definitely think it is directed at this was a part of the Taylor Jenkins firing as we want expanded minutes for Zach Edey, see what this guy can really do. And that's definitely the expectation for like what's going on right now. Don't think last night was the moment. There will be better days ahead for Zach Edey. I'm confident he will be a competent and long on the long term, like a legitimate NBA player, but interesting last night.
All right. Over to the first game of the evening. We'll quickly hit on this one. It was a blowout. And full disclosure, Sam, myself, and Sean, not feeling passionate about it, said I kind of like the Trae Young and the Hawks here. They were catching 5. This game was ugly. In fact, Trae Young got thrown out of the game for making a mockery of the game from the referee's perspective. So what could we talk about from this game? Because it was just a brutal basketball game to watch. The Orlando Magic, though, like it's a team I want to root for. They've been dealing with injuries all season long. But, man, I'll tell you what, last night it was a fun game to tune into, especially if you had the Orlando Magic and the way that they were able to put it together. And like I said, this team has been dealing with injuries for some big-name players. Suggs goes down. I thought Suggs was a good player for them. But they still have some big name players that can go out there and make things happen like Wagner. But last night was the Cole Anthony game, 26 points. My man had it going. 26. Trae Young finished with 28, so he didn't lead the game in scoring. But 26 points, he was the difference for the Orlando Magic. Am I off on that?
No, that's totally fair take there. And by the way, one of the better hissy fits that I've seen of late from Trae Young leaving that game there. The game was already out of hand, so it wasn't like that caused the loss there. But the little pump fake pass to the referee and pull it back, all this kind of stuff, stealing with his leg as the ball's rolled out. Pretty funny stuff there. I did joke with Sam Ashby. I think the play-in tournament should be renamed the Atlanta Hawks Invitational there. This does seem to be where they find themselves quite often here. But honestly, my takeaway watching last night, as I saw these two teams square off, the Orlando Magic should be much better than they are, man. When you look down this roster, you look down this caliber of talent. And by the way, they got off to a 15-7 start to the season. That it did look like they were taking that leap. Now, when you evaluate why they're not better, the clear answer is shooting. They shot 31.8% from beyond the three-point arc as a team this season. That is not only the worst rate in the league, but the worst of any team in the NBA since 2015-16 there, a decade that they've been the worst shooting three-point team there. And by the way, they gave $66 million to Kentavious Caldwell-Pope this offseason to try and fix that problem. A guy who has been a competent floor spacer, a two-time champion, a guy who's delivered in those moments, and he had the worst shooting season of his career since the same timeline in over 10 years at this point. So disappointing stuff from the Magic's perspective. Paolo, even though the raw numbers look bad, he shot 4 of 13 from the field, finished with 17 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists. I thought he played really well last night. Thought he imposed himself on both ends of the floor. That's got to be the centerpiece, the guy, and I do think he is taking those steps. But you are right about Cole Anthony taking that next step, and good for him, for a guy who's been pretty inconsistent in his level of opportunity. He's had a couple injuries this season. He's kind of been in and out of the mix here. He stepped up when the moment mattered, dropped 26 off the bench, and Anthony Black was 16 as well. So shout out to this Magic team. They had two guys step up when the moment mattered, even when their stars weren't really hitting shots. So they earned this opportunity, and now they get to at least go to battle in the playoffs.
Yeah, let's see. We'll talk a little more about their first round matchup, but
yeah,
the SoFi play-in, Cole Anthony has arrived. Yeah, he went off last night, and minus the Tims, he looked good doing it. Let's put it that way. All right, and again, I got nothing to add from that game. Let's keep it moving. Let's talk about some bigger matchups, some teams that actually have some potential to go on here. But let's go ahead and focus on to tonight's games, because I do enjoy tonight's games as well. I do like the games that we have going off this evening. The Miami Heat, Chicago Bulls, essentially a pick 'em at this point in time. 219s are total. That game goes off at 7:40 p.m. Then we got the Mavericks and the Sacramento Kings, where the Sacramento Kings are at home as 4.5-point favorites, 214. Let's just pretend, let's just say that the Miami Heat are the underdogs in this one, and as the Dallas Mavericks are underdogs in the nightcap. Your best bet as far as a dog is concerned. Where are you looking, Sean?
I like the Dallas Mavericks to win tonight. I do. I think It's been quite the season from a Dallas Mavericks perspective for everything that has gone down. But to just look at this game in a vacuum, I do think Anthony Davis is the clear-cut best player on the floor. I do think defensively they can raise to a level that the Kings will not be able to match offensively. And to be honest, looking at the Sacramento team, I think we have enough of a sample size at this point to evaluate that DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine as two of your better players is not going to translate to postseason success. We saw that exact outlook in Chicago, where basically nothing happened with their time together there. I like LaVine. I think he's a better player than he sometimes gets a reputation. Same with DeRozan here. But I think this Kings team just cannot hold up defensively. And at that same time, I think that the Mavericks can impose themselves on that side of the floor. So I do think the Mavericks win outright tonight. And I do like the under of 214 there.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, the Mavericks are dealing with a whole bunch of nonsense too behind the scenes. We were talking a little bit before.
Self-imposed, I will add.
Yeah, Nico is his own worst enemy. That organization, that franchise is just about as brutal as it gets with the decision that they made, just trading Luka in the middle of the season, A, B, to the Lakers, C, getting back the return that they did, D, alienating your fans. They just did not care. Like, simply put, they did not care about any of this. And if they did, then they wouldn't have made the deal because you knew that this would happen. It has to come back to money, right? Like, doesn't it have to come back to money that they just did not want to give that type of contract that Luka was going to fetch? And if you're not going to give that type of contract to Luka, then get the hell out of the business.
Right.
Get out of the business.
I think it comes down. Money's certainly a significant part of the equation, as we're talking about like $340 million that they would have been committing to Luka Doncic there. And I think, to me, I think it comes down to just more of them not being in touch with what it means to be a sports fan, with being a fan base. These are not basketball guys like Patrick Dumont, who's now the owner over there. He comes from a casino background, a hospitality background, has made a ton of money. He's not a guy that is a hoops head by any means. And like, I think that's a huge part of it. Now with Nico Harrison specifically here, he more or less has admitted as such that he was directly asked yesterday, and to set the full table for this press setting here, it was like an exclusive secretive event for handpicked media with no recordings and no cameras allowed. That in itself should be a red flag for how that's going off. But one of the questions that was asked during it was, do you feel responsibility to the fan base to make decisions on their part like that? And his reply was, I have a responsibility to the Dallas Mavericks to make the right decision for the organization. I get where he's coming from here, but it's just kind of like, you don't get it, man. That was sort of my takeaway from everything that leaked out, is there's just a disconnect for how this is. And by the way, shout out to Grant Afseth out there, who's a guy I work with at DraftKings Sportsbook, a guy who's been a huge face in media for several years at this point, a real deal reporter. To give it from his perspective, who's been an on the beat reporter for the Dallas Mavericks for several years now, he was physically at Mavericks practice yesterday. Did get no news of this press availability happening because it was for handpicked media, which he was not a part of. And I don't want to get Grant. I don't want to get Grant in any sort of trouble here. But what I will say is he's been a truth teller in this situation for how just pointing out correctly and accurately, I will add, how this isn't the standard for how organizations run, such as Nico Harrison not taking a press conference after the trade deadline, which is standard practice in the NBA and any sports league, really. So Grant was at practice yesterday in the morning. And mind you, this is happening the day before a play-in tournament season on the line game for this Mavericks team. So if you want to talk what's best for the organization, I personally would point out maybe it's not creating a distraction by holding this event the day before the most important game of your season. But nonetheless, to continue on here, so Grant's at practice, has no word of this event happening. The event did not happen at the Mavericks facility. It happened up the road at a conference center not owned by the Mavericks there. Again, you can put two and two together here for why these are the case here. And then they have their handpicked media guys, 12 media members, I believe was the number there, with no recordings, no cameras, and basically no transcription available outside of what guys have personally told on what went down. So I think the Dallas Mavericks just continue to make things look worse from every single angle here. Then to handle it the way that they have from start to finish, they just keep digging the hole deeper and deeper. So maddening stuff all around there.
Well put, and I agree with you on all of it. It's It's a sad day. It seems to be happening a little bit more in real life too, with this handpicked media availability
Yeah.
stuff, and now you get teams that just feel like they can go ahead and control the message. When, dude, you traded Luka Doncic, like this isn't something you could sweep under the rug. Like you got to
No.
come out and own it. And you knew like this was going to happen. This was not going to be something easy. This was going to be straight up, and this wasn't going to be turbulence either. This is the plane taking a complete nosedive into the ground, and you're behind the wheel, man. Like, get out there, own it, step up. I have no issues with Nico saying, I'm not going to address the media over the next few weeks after that trade. So be it. Look at our guy, Daryl Morey. You know, he talks 3 times a year, 4 times a year. Like, it is what it is. You get these coaches. I understand it. There's only so much he can say. He came out. I'm not going to stick up for him on moving Luka at all. But as far as handling the media afterwards, I'm okay with, allowing things to breathe. Right before playoff time, if you think that that's a good time to talk to 12 media members, open it up. Open it up. If you could talk to 12, you could talk to everybody like a grown-ass man. And these media members aren't acting like fans walking into these conference rooms with Fire Nico t-shirts.
Right.
Like this has been respectable from that side of things. So it's like, dude,
And relevant, like fair questions. These should be asked.
Yeah. Like, again, I still have not heard why he didn't open it up.
Defense wins championships is the
which is bull. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is bull. Like, okay,
they went to the finals last year.
Yes.
Like, even if Luka doesn't take the best care of his body, I get like all of these, he likes to enjoy a beer now and then. I understand that's not your ideal picture for the face of your franchise, but dude, like at worst, he's one of the 6 best basketball players in the world. And I think that's being pretty lenient with the range there. I think he's probably like in fair, the 3rd best at his best there. So regardless here, it's Luka Doncic, man. And that was one of the other comments that leaked out yesterday that Nico Harrison admitted to is I didn't realize how much Luka meant to the city of Dallas. And it's like, are you serious, man? Like, that's one of the disconnects with fandom that I'll point out here. Like, whether or not you want to admit this or not, and I think we can all kind of wear this to a sense. If I'm a Dallas Mavericks fan and I've seen the start of Luka Doncic's career, we drafted him, we saw him develop into this all-NBA talent. I honestly, if I'm a Mavericks fan, would rather watch Luka's entire career and never win a ring than trade him and win rings. And I don't think that point connects in Nico Harrison or the Dallas Mavericks head. And I get not everyone is probably in that same spot here, but I do think that's the truth for a lot of fans. Like, there is this attachment to players. And when you have guys that you go through the wins and losses with, earn these scars with, it matters, man. And I just think it's so short-sighted by the Mavericks to make this decision. I do think they cost themselves a fan base that they're going to deal with the fallout for this for literal years at this point. And by the way, in the midst of all this, Luka Doncic is probably going to go on to win several rings with the Los Angeles Lakers just to rub salt in the wounds.
Yeah. Maybe today, maybe this year.
Possible. Yeah.
When they get out there and they're playing their best ball, they're hard to beat. And that's just, it's as easy as it gets right there, right? Like, even if Oklahoma City's playing their best game, if the Lakers are on with LeBron and Luka, it is a tough out. So they absolutely could win it all this year, and they're priced as such. All right, from Dallas, you like Dallas tonight to beat the Sacramento Kings. Money line. Taking a jump here at plus 154. 214 is our total in that one. That is our second game of the evening. Of course, that's definitely one to stay up for with everything that is around the Dallas Mavericks. Now, over to the Miami Heat and Chicago Bulls to get the party started at 7:40 p.m. Bulls 3-0 versus the Miami Heat this year. And to bring it up even closer, all 3 matchups since February 4th. So February 4th, March 8th, April 9th, Bulls won 133, 124, 114, 109, 119, 111. So Sean Barnard, should we be looking at Chicago to make it 4-0 this year versus the Miami Heat?
I do believe so right there. That I think this Miami Heat is a little bit of a case of the name brand, not the actuality. That we've seen this Heat team rise out of the play-in tournament before. I just don't really see it with this roster here. That Tyler Hero has had a career year. Bam Adebayo has statistically regressed. He's been better the second half of the season, but I just don't see the level of talent. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about this Bulls team as if they're this world
No.
beater here that like they can, make some noise in the playoffs. I don't see that, but I do think there is something to the way Josh Giddey has played during the tail end of the season, ripping off triple doubles at a regular rate here. There's a foundational ability that I believe in this Bulls team that I don't see on the Heat here. The Heat could show up looking like whatever tonight, looking like a horrible basketball team, and it would not outright shock me. The Bulls are going to be exactly who they are, and to some extent that's comforting for me from like a playing perspective of I at least know what I'm getting here. I don't like this Heat team. I don't think they've played well all year. Duncan Robinson's been brutal. You can go down the list. Jaime Jaquez has basically not played this year. Khalil Ware has been a positive storyline, so I'll give a little bit of love there. Terry Rozier been brutal as well. I just don't see like the way the Heat can kind of lean on anything here. So I like the Bulls to get the win here. I don't feel great about them from a playoff perspective either, but I think Josh Giddey probably ends up looking like the best player on the floor, and I would have been pretty surprised to believe that to be the case heading into the season.
Is there anything there from a player prop standpoint when we get into whether it's Giddey or Hero or anybody else from this game that you're eyeing up? Like who is going to carry the load as far as scoring for the Chicago Bulls?
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad call to take a chance on Josh Giddey triple-double plus 235 there to set the table. He's minus 360 for a double-double, which is pretty crazy there. His rebounding
He did it last
numbers,
time they played too. Last time they played 28, 16 rebounds and 11 assists. Did Giddey grow since he got traded?
He's been good, man. Like especially
tall, though. That's right. He is a tall dude.
Yeah, I think he's like 6'7", 6'8", so he's not a little guy by any means. Certainly a ball dominant guard, a guy that like still has limitations as a shooter. He's not a perfect player by any means, but I do think that he's shown some abilities in Chicago that he was unable to like show off in Oklahoma City with all the talent that they had there. So I don't mind that from a perspective there. Looking at some of the other numbers, I don't mind Tyler Hero over 24.5, that he's kind of their only source of offense there. And even a guy like Bam is pretty limited in what he can do. So I think Hero comes out swinging and lets it fly tonight. I do like that number there. The Tyler Hero points over 24.5, and then the triple double for Josh Giddey would probably be my two stabs if I was taking a shot at this from a player prop perspective.
Is there a player from the Miami Heat that we don't really pay attention to too much that is going to shine tonight? Because I feel like when they get into this playoff mode, there's always one player that's like out of nowhere. He goes off and hits 6 3-pointers. Is there anybody on your mind? Is it a Duncan Robinson, who we know very well, but we could see him go off this evening? Where are we at?
Davion Mitchell is where my head went here. I like Mitchell a lot. He's a guy I've liked since college, since his days. Like he's more of kind of a Heat culture guy as far as like he imposes himself defensively. He is a bulldog, man. Like I think like he'll give Giddey some trouble for stretches as he's just incredibly bothersome. Like as we talk about all these guys that are high level defenders, what Davion Mitchell specifically does is he's like a get under your skin guy. He's pushing at you, he's jabbing, poking at the ball, all these things, but he's got something to him offensively as well. So if I was gonna point out somebody that might not be that well known for your average NBA fan that I think could shine tonight, Davion Mitchell would be my answer there.
All right. Of course, we'll have the other playing games, the matchups after tonight's 2 games, and we'll see who's going head-to-head there. Let's hit the fast-forward button, though, and I want to get a few brief questions thrown your way, a little rapid-fire style-esque, if we could, when it comes to the first round of the playoffs, some big, important numbers, and of course, as far as injuries are concerned, players to be watching, all that and more as we head to Saturday when the official start of the NBA plays. This is the play-in. This isn't officially the playoffs, correct?
The appetizer, yeah, okay. getting warmed up still.
Yeah, getting warmed up. All right, so Bucks and Pacers. What's the latest with Damian Lillard? Let's start there for the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, Shams yesterday reporting that he won't be available for the start of the postseason. Are hopeful that he can return at some point. It's tough, man. Like this is not a sprained ankle. This is not a sore knee. This is a blood clot. This isn't something that you can kind of battle through. You got to basically do whatever the doctors tell you here. So I have a lot of sympathy for this Bucks team, to be perfectly honest, for this specific season. I did like the way they were playing when, like, I thought Damian Lillard had a much better season this year with him. I was starting to believe in like the 2-man action that they were running with Giannis, and Giannis has been way under the radar for how incredible of a season that he has. He deserves a little MVP buzz. He's not going to win it. He doesn't deserve it like that, but he's been one of the better players in the league, a surefire all NBA first team guy, in my opinion. But without Damian Lillard, I don't think that they have enough here for this series. The Pacers have certainly come on in the second half of the season and played their best basketball. It's interesting. It's been like a reverse season from Indiana compared to last year, as they were electric at the start of last season, and Tyrese Halliburton directly connected to both these points, as he was incredible for the first half of the season and really faded down the stretch this year or last year. This year, it's been the opposite. They were a little tough out of the gates, and Halliburton really struggled the first half of the season, and he's been incredible the whole second half of the year. So I do think Indiana has momentum on their side. I do think Damian Lillard's injury is a big story, and I do think the Pacers end up winning the series.
Can Giannis win this series by himself, though, if he does go off?
He could. I'm not entirely ruling this out, that this isn't one of those takes that I'm locked in, like the Pacers are winning this. If they played this series 100 times, the Pacers are winning all 100. That's not the case here. And Giannis, by the way, deserves some credit for continuing to improve. As a playmaker this year, this has been by far his best season, in my opinion here. He's also completely cut out three-point shots from his shot at this point, which is interesting. We've seen the entire NBA world evolve into all 3-point shots. Everybody has to shoot them, getting them up at this, insane rate here. And Giannis is sort of zagged on that conversation, that he said, I'm only doing what I'm best at. I'll shoot some mid-range and I'm attacking the basket. And it's working for him. I mean, the efficiency numbers are pretty off the charts for how he's delivered this season. He can absolutely carry a team, and he will win games in this series because of that here. But I do think there's not quite enough around him.
All right. And yes, Sean Barnard has watched the Indiana Pacers play this year a few times and can talk a little bit more about them. So have I.
They're fun to watch. I don't know why people don't. They're fun to watch.
And especially this series, too. These two teams had a little bit of a rivalry last year. I think they brewed it up. And it's been a little all over the place this year, as you pointed out, with the Pacers and the slow start that they had. But, man, they've come back. And, Pascal Siakam is damn good. You got Tyrese Halliburton. They had a couple late-game winners that caught my attention down the stretch here. And this is a good series that they absolutely could win due to the fact that Damian Lillard is not in there. And, a little bit, even if Dame was in there, I'd still think that the Pacers could win it. But I probably would pick the Milwaukee Bucks. Without Dame, I'm going to roll with the Pacers here. And just to let everybody know, as far as DraftKings Sportsbook is concerned, Pacers minus 195, same number that the Lakers were that we just discussed. And the Lakers against the T-Wolves. Pacers minus 195, Milwaukee Bucks plus 160. Really intriguing numbers there.
By the way, we did get some breaking news on the Pacers conversation. Nothing super notable here, but their G League affiliate has officially changed their name from the Indiana Mad Ants to the Noblesville Boom. So shout out to that. That's kind of a dope name.
Mad Ants, huh?
Now they're the Boom.
The Boom. Bringing the boom. Oh, good grief. All right, let's keep it moving here. Next one up that I got some questions as far as the sorry, I hit the wrong button here. I want to get these Saturday spreads. This way we can go right into those games first. Let's go Clippers and Nuggets. And, of course, I believe that the Clippers could go on a run here. They're healthy. Kawhi is that dude. Just get out of his way. He had a chance to win that game against the Golden State Warriors at the end of regulation. I was shocked that he missed it. But they ended up winning that game in overtime. Anyways, they're 2-point dogs on the road against the Denver Nuggets here. Denver, the post-Malone era, Shaman. I like that. Yeah. Are we overselling the Clippers here? Do they have a legit shot in your mind to go into Denver and to upset the Nuggets in game one and take the series? Where you at?
Yeah, I certainly think I'm picking the Clippers to win this series. So I do think that they go in there and take care of business in the overall standpoint. I don't want to fully discount the Nuggets, as this is a championship team. Nikola Jokic is going to be the best player on the floor to just about every single court that he walks on in life here, and will be the case against this Clippers team here. But I do think, and I made this case with Sam Ostry in our preview here, I think Ivica Zubac is the toughest matchup that he's ever had from a playoff perspective as far as big men go. It's been very rare that we've seen a guy go eye to eye with Jokic. And Minnesota is probably the counterpoint to that they did have Gobert and Karl-Anthony Towns and did some pretty creative stuff as far as throwing Cat on him as a physical body and then having Gobert be a roamer behind him there. But Zubac has been incredible, man. He will get some All-NBA votes. I think he probably gets that All-NBA third team and deserves it, in my opinion there. But talking about the Clippers as a whole, they got a lot more than just Kawhi, man. Like James Harden, a little tip of the cap for being the engine of an offense in the way that I think some of us doubted, myself included, he could still do at this age. They have rotation guys, the Amir Coffees, the Derek Jones Jr.'s, all these guys that step up and play their roles at a high level. And Zubac's been incredible from the big man perspective all season. The two-man game with him and Harden is the real deal. We see how elite Harden is. We saw it in Philadelphia with him and Embiid, him just spoon-feeding layup attempts and dunk attempts to these big men here. So I think there's a lot more that the Clippers have to rely on. When I look at Denver, it's going to be a lot of Nikola Jokic come save us type vibe from them. So I do like the Clippers to win this series, and I do think it gets started in game one with the Clippers taking care of business.
All right, rapid fire, 30 seconds or less. You ready?
Hit me.
Are you taking the Detroit Pistons +7 game one, 6-10 Saturday night?
I am, and I'm on them to win the series.
What's the number to win the series?
Let me see what it's up to now. It was at +4. I saw +400.
Should everybody have that? Because of the number, we're all going to want to root against the Knicks. Is that a standard gambler gang play?
The over 5.5 games in that series to me is a must bet. Like I think this is going to be a battle of a series. People are sleeping on this Detroit Pistons teams, and what the numbers exactly sitting at here is +310 for the Pistons, -400 for the Knicks here. They're stylistically like pretty the same. They're defensive minded teams. They want to be physical. And I'm going to continue to make the case. I think Cade Cunningham ends up looking like the best player on the floor in this series. People are not aware how good Cade Cunningham currently is. I do think this is going to be an awesome series, probably the best of the first round. So sign me up for the Pacers. I like any number I can get.
Game one, Lakers and Timberwolves, Saturday night. Can't believe it. T-Wolves, any shot to go into LA and win game one?
Don't think so. I think they'll put up a battle. And again, I think this is probably Lakers in 6. I'm giving them a little bit more respect than a lot of people are. But I mean, the Lakers, it's Luka Doncic and LeBron James, man. I'm not going to oversimplify it to that extent. They still have their flaws. They don't have a big man, and Jackson Hayes is not quite holding the weight. And also, by the way, people keep throwing the phrase of like Lakers love to play small ball. I get it's true, but also like LeBron James and Luka Doncic are each like 6'8" plus and like big guys there. So it's not quite true small ball in my mind when looking at it that way. So ultimately, I don't give the Timberwolves much of a chance in this series, even though I think they will look at least competitive and competent.
14.5 point spread, Boston favored over Orlando in game one. Shouldn't shock big numbers all season long for Boston, but it is a playoff game. The number one question for Orlando to beat Boston or keep it a close game is, can they defend a 3? Is that the correct way to look at this?
Probably, and I think the answer is no there.
No.
Like, I think we will get some ugly. I think Orlando probably sneaks a game, that it goes 4-1 in Boston's favor, but I think we get some ugly numbers in this series. I could see 30-point blowouts, 40-point blowouts. Certainly could see that be the case when Boston gets clicking. So the lack of 3-point shot from Orlando, there's not a team where you're going to be more exposed by that than this Boston Celtics team. So I think that's going to be put on full display. I do like the -14 in game one.
All right, and last one here. Golden State's a point favorite against the Houston Rockets on Sunday night. Ooh, we got playoff basketball, game one Sunday night. Let's go on 420, which is also a Easter. I just want to say that. Golden State point favorite is the wrong team. What's your read as far as that spread is concerned? Golden State slightly favored. Should we be reading more that Houston is that, it's essentially a pick 'em at home, so the odds makers are saying that they have a shot to win this game, or Golden State being favored in this spot even though they're the lower seed? What's your big take on as far as that spread is concerned?
Yeah, I mean, Golden State has all the experience and the championship pedigree on their side. They do have Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green. You can run down the list. They have more top end talent than this Houston team. But man, the Rockets are so deep. They know who they are as a basketball team. They are going to compete defensively, and they just got these long, rangy, athletic, top tier defenders they can throw at you. They'll cycle through the Amen Thompsons, the Tari Easons, the Dylan Brooks, all these guys that are going to like impose themselves. So I do think this series is going to be a battle. I think people have written off the Rockets a little bit too quick here. Ultimately, I'm still riding with the Warriors, but I think this is at least a 6 or 7 game series here. And I do think the Rockets come in there and punch them in the mouth in game one. So I like the Rockets to win on Sunday. And I think that both these teams should buckle up for war, even though the talking points seem to be that the Warriors have this pathway paved for them.
All right. Sean Barnard, great stuff as always. You can find Sean on all things socials, Sean_Barnard1. Of course, representing the squad over at DraftKings Sportsbook. Does a great job on all things as far as covering what is being discussed when it comes to the world of sports gambling. DKNetwork.com. This has been a live edition of Picks and Roll. And oh, by the way, don't touch that dial because you're going to hear more from Sean and Sam coming up a little bit later. If you missed that episode of Picks and Roll from yesterday, great job across the board. Two high brain individuals discussing the great game of NBA hoops, man, and a fantastic listen. That's podcasted at foxphlgambler.com, as well as everything else that we do on this station. Sean, great stuff. Enjoy the games tonight. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we will be going live every single day until we crown a champion a little bit later this summer. But for tonight, enjoy the games. And once again, we got the Chicago Bulls hosting the Miami Heat and, of course, the Sacramento Kings and Dallas Mavericks in a nightcap. And the winners get to face the Atlanta Hawks and the Memphis Grizzlies on Friday for the 8 seeds in the NBA playoffs. Sean Barnard, great stuff as always. Once again, keep it locked right here to the Gambler. We'll talk to you.